A very good morning, children. In such a bright morning, let's begin our day to learn science. So, students, in our previous lecture, we had learned about various adaptations in animals. We had completed the part of animals adaptation. Now, as we move further, we are going to learn about classification of living organisms and why there is a need to classify all living organisms. Before learning the need of classification of living organism, let's see the theory of evolution of famous scientist, that is Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, a biologist, studied numerous types of plants and animals and suggested that only those organisms are likely to survive which can best adapt themselves to a changing environment. This is called the theory of survival of the fittest. This is Darwin's first principle. Now, students, what it means? Charles Darwin, a biologist, studied that only those plants and animals can survive in the condition those can adapt themselves according to the environment. We have studied, students, we have learned all the adaptations taken by the various organisms to survive in their particular environmental condition. So, those organisms can change themselves as per the environment conditions. Only those can survive, only those can live, and this is called the theory of survival of the fittest by Charles Darwin, and this was Darwin's first principle. Let's see the second principle of Charles Darwin, sir. If an organism is born with a new beneficial characteristic and is able to survive, this change is preserved in the next generation. This is Darwin's second principle and is called the theory of natural selection. What it means, students? Now we know from parents, children get the characteristics same as their parents. So, what Charles Darwin sir is saying, if an organism is born with a new beneficial characteristic and is able to survive with that specific character, then the character will pass to its next generation. It is not so that only the organism which has born with that characteristic will be remaining till him only. No, but it's going to pass to its next generation. This was the Darwin's second principle and it is called as the theory of natural selection. So let's read it once again to get it more clear. If an organism is born with a new beneficial characteristic and is able to survive, this change is preserved in the next generation. This is Darwin's second principle and is called the theory of natural selection. In the picture, you can see the great scientist Charles Darwin. Now, let's move to the further concept, that is classification of living organisms. A question arises. Why are living things classified? An answer to this question is, living organisms are classified mainly to avoid confusion, to make study of organisms easy and learn how various organisms are related to each other. For example, student, if we talk about a reptile, it's also an animal. And if we talk about a fish, it's also animal. But they have been given various names. Fish is said as aquatic animals. It's placed under different group. Reptiles are placed under different groups. Hence, to avoid confusion, to make study of organisms easy and also to learn the relation between all various organisms, classification is of importance. So, why are living things classified? Living organisms are classified mainly to avoid confusion, to make study of organisms easy and learn how various organisms are related to each other. Next question. Which are the criteria used for classification of plants and animals? And the answer to this question is binomial nomenclature is a two-name naming criteria used to classify plants and animals. Students, which criteria is used to classify plants and animals? It's named as binomial nomenclature, where bi means two and nomenclature is nothing but giving name. So a two-name naming criteria is used to classify plants and animals. It is binomial nomenclature. We will be seeing it further in detail. What does actually binomial nomenclature says us? So, which are the criteria used for classification of plants and animals? It is the binomial nomenclature. It is difficult to study and remember all the organisms in this diverse living world at the same time. Hence, classification helps in this respect. We learn in the question student why classification is important to study the individual organisms easily. So, different scientists have used different criteria and independently classified plants and animals. A hierarchy is formed in the classification that starts with kingdom Animalia or kingdom Plantae. Further groups and subgroups are formed depending upon basic similarities and differences. This is called the hierarchy of classification. First of all, students, you all will be thinking, what is hierarchy? So let's see what does hierarchy means. Hierarchy is a group that controls an organization and is divided into different levels. Students, hierarchy is an organization that divides the organisms into different levels, and the levels are kingdom, phylum, class, family, genus, and the last one in the hierarchy system of classification is species. Last level is species. So, hierarchy is an organization which divides the organism into different level for us to understand it easily. So, this is called the hierarchy of classification, dividing living organisms into their groups or subgroups upon basic similarities and differences is nothing but the hierarchy of classification. Let's make the concept more clear through this chart. Students, here you can see hierarchy. And what is hierarchy? It is an organization which divides the organism into different levels. And what are the levels? See, one by one. It is kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. According to this level and according to the organization of hierarchy, we are going to classify mango and human. So, mango is classified under the kingdom Plantae because it's a mango plant. We cannot say it's mango animal. So, mango comes under kingdom Plantae and human comes under kingdom Animalia. Man is a social animal. We say it student. So, hence humans are placed under kingdom Animalia. Have you all understood the first one? The first level of the organization of hierarchy divides the organism into kingdom, and that is Plantae and Animalia. Next comes the phylum. Mango, Anthophylla, and humans are placed under the phylum Chordata. Next comes class, Dicotyledon, and human Mammalia. Order, Sapindales, and human primates. Family, next level of hierarchy system of organization is family. And mango is kept under Anacardiaceae family. And human is kept under family Hominidae. Genus Mangifera. Species is Indica. Human Homo is a genus and species is Sapiens. Homo sapiens. So the scientific name of human is Homo sapiens. And the scientific name of mango plant is Mangifera indica. Students, we will be learning in detail about the class, order, phylum and family specification, why mango is placed under Sapindales order, why human is placed under primates order in our higher classes. Now we have to just focus, we have to learn only about binomial nomenclature and what does hierarchy means. So we have studied it. What is hierarchy of classification? Now let's see what does binomial nomenclature says us, what it means. Binomial nomenclature by Carl Linnaeus. Students, before knowing the actual term, before learning it, let's take an example. Imagine that there are 4 students with a name Kabir or Kiran in a classroom. If you are talking about any one of them, how would you ensure that others know which one of them you are talking about without any confusion? We would tell the full name, that is first name and the last name. This is similar to the binomial nomenclature. Students, it usually happens in a classroom. There are 2 children of same name. So, how we recognize both of them? How we make sure that both are separate? By their name and surname. Name comes as same, but their surname differs. Their surname is different. So, same how it's in binomial nomenclature. To avoid confusion, an organism is named into 2 naming criteria, that is genus and species. Like our first name, genus is placed, and our last name, so that is our surname, species name has given to that organism. Let's see binomial nomenclature. Bi means 2. Hence, in binomial nomenclature, the organism is named into 2 system, that is the genus and species. We can say into 2 levels of hierarchy, that is genus and species. Binomial nomenclature is used to identify each organism. Accordingly, a scientific name has been assigned to each organism. It consists of 2 parts. The first part is genus and second species. I said you students, first only, binomial nomenclature, where bi means 2. So, the naming system is in 2 parts, where the first part is known as genus and second is known as species. All identified organisms have been assigned a binomial name as per the guidelines of the International Code of Nomenclature. We have learnt in our previous slide, that was through the chart, that the scientific name of mango was Mangifera indica, where Mangifera was genus and indica was its species. Same, we had also seen the scientific name of human, where genus name was Homo and species was Sapiens. Homo sapiens. All the organisms of a species are so similar that irrespective of differences in color, height, habitats and habits, they can reproduce among themselves and form new individuals like themselves. For example, all domestic cats in the world belong to the same species. The same is true in the case of animals like hen, cow, dog, etc. and plants like mango, wheat, maize, etc. So students, what it is saying to us that all organisms of a same species are similar to irrespective of differences in color, height, habitats and habits. Though their species are same, color, height and habitats and various characteristics doesn't matter for reproduction. The organisms of a same species, irrespective to their differences in color, height and habitats, can reproduce among themselves and form new individuals like themselves. For example, all domestic cats in the world belong to the same species, though their colors may be different. Some may be black cat, white cat, but the black and white can reproduce. So, same is true in the case of animals like hen, cow, dog, etc. and plants like mango, wheat, maize, etc. What we learn, students? The main conclusion, the main point we come to know that if the species are same, the differences in color, height and habitats doesn't matter to reproduce among themselves and form new individuals. So students, we have completed our lesson number 1. What we have learned in this chapter? We have learned what does adaptation means. We have seen various adaptation in plants, various adaptation in animals, and the end part of the lesson was why there is a need to classify living organism and on which criteria living organism is classified. Which criteria it was, students? It was binomial nomenclature. We have seen the hierarchy system of classification. What is hierarchy? It is an organization which divides the organism into different levels. So students, we have concluded our chapter. We have completed our lesson number 1, that is the